Hey guys, Taki here. Very rarely do I review a device that I end up liking even more after my review is over, but that's exactly where I find myself with the ROG Ally. I've been using this every day for the last 2.5 months, and I can comfortably say that this is currently one of my favorite handhelds that I've ever used. I like it so much that it's the first device that I reach for when I have time to game. In this video, I want to talk about how I've been using Ally, some of the new issues that I faced, and why I like this device enough to make this updated video on it. I want to first talk about how I got to this point. I made my original video on the ROG Ally back on May 20th. At that point, I described a lot of strange issues that I had with my device, but I ultimately said that I enjoyed the device. When I said that, I was mainly talking about the fact that I enjoyed using the device to make that video, and that's not something that's abnormal for me. There are a lot of handhelds that I review that I enjoy using while I review them. I made another video on Ally versus the Steam Deck a few days after that, and then I made my final video on the device with the RTX 4090 XG Mobile on June 13th. At that point, I was pretty comfortable with where I left things, and I had no further plans to make another video on the device unless there was some drastic change to the product. Prior to the release of that RTX 4090 video, I had been using Ally daily for a lot of things. Due to the fact that it has a 7000 series processor, it was really useful for a lot of benchmarking that I needed to do with other hardware that I was also reviewing for the channel. After the RTX video went live, I didn't have any other use for the device from a video making standpoint or any other thing related to YouTube. This is usually the point where the product will sit in a comfy spot in my studio until I need to use it in the future. But the strange thing was that it was the first device that I reached for at night on June 13th when I wanted to game. One thing that might be a bit strange coming from me is that I don't really have a whole lot of time to game. I play games to review the devices for this hobby that I have, but between being a father and work, I very rarely have time to just sink into a game that I like, and this is without even posting that many videos every month. If I posted more, I would never have free time to game. There are a lot of games in my Steam library that I only progress through while I'm reviewing hardware. But I like to game, and if I didn't have other obligations, I could sink a ton of time into gaming like it was an Olympic sport. So yeah, from June 13th until today, I've been using Ally every day solely in the small pockets of free time that I have around all of my other obligations. During that time, I've learned a lot more about the device. I've faced more issues, and I've grown to enjoy the device enough to make this updated video. I'm planning to talk about those issues and why I like this device so much, but I want to first talk about how I've been using Ally because that's also important. I want to say that 70 to 80% of my time with Ally over the last 2 months has been gaming at night. Usually, I'll pick up Ally to game for an hour or two in bed before I go to sleep. This is usually the time that I would use to play the deck, but there are things about this device that have caused me to reach for it instead. I started out by playing a ton of Core Keeper. I have 70 hours logged right now on Steam, and I would say 65 of those hours come right from playing on Ally at night. That game is a darker game most of the time, which works out well for Ally's screen. The minimum brightness on Ally isn't great, and it's frankly a bit too high to be used around anyone that might be sleeping around you. So, when I want to play a game at night on the device, I will make a conscious effort not to play any games that are overly bright. That also means that I don't use the RGB lights because they are way too bright at 33% at night. I wish those had a lower setting. Outside that game, the next group of darker games that I'll play are the ones that don't run that well on the deck unless I use 13 to 15 watt TDP. I will usually never play those games on my deck at night because the fan is too loud. I've experimented with lower custom fan curves that don't make that much noise, but the heat is too noticeable and I don't have a good time. Ally makes almost no noise at 15 watt TDP, and the battery life is just enough for me to usually be about ready for sleep before the battery dies. So far, I haven't talked at all about emulation because the truth is I did not think that I would use Ally for emulation. I have way better handhelds that do that better, and I was fine just using this for PC gaming. After Nintendo did their announcement for the new Super Mario RPG game, I wanted to do a replay of the original in my free time, and Ally was already at my bedside, so it was easy. I have already beaten the normal game many times over the years, so I wanted to try out either the randomizer mod or one of the other popular ones. I decided to go with Super Mario RPG Armageddon since I had never played it. If you have also never played it, I recommend giving it a whirl because the added difficulty and the new content were a breath of fresh air. The problem with that game is that you need to execute a ton of timed hits in order to even kill trash mobs, and that causes the screen to flash too much to be able to play this at night in bed. Around that time, I started messing around with a pair of AR glasses from Viture that work perfectly with Ally. This isn't something new to me because I have used a pair of TCL glasses with my Steam Deck and other devices for over 9 months. The Viture glasses are good because they have great screens inside the glasses that have way better color, contrast, and brightness than Ally's screen, and they also have speakers near ears that are good enough to not need to use headphones. When I have those on, I don't have to worry about anyone waking up from seeing my screen, hearing the fan, or hearing the audio from the games that I'm playing. Waking up from button mashing is an entirely different topic. It took me a while to go through this mode because I didn't rush things, but I'm around 25 to 30 hours in at this point, and there is still a ton of content left to do. All of that was done on Ally with these glasses. It's also the first time that I appreciated the bottom design of Ally because it fits perfectly against my stomach when I'm lying down, looking up with the glasses on. It's super comfy. I don't want to spend too long on this, but I did want to touch on some of the issues that I found after using Ally for this long. Full disclosure, this is the second Ally unit that I've used. ROG asked for my original one back to investigate it, and they sent me this one. I swapped out my old drive into this device, and then I sent back my old one to them. This one doesn't bench as high as my review unit, but I stopped worrying about anything like that a long time ago. I think the biggest issue that I've experienced is the SD card issue. I had a card that slowly started ejecting from the device before people started to talk about issues that they had. I thought this was a fluke thing, but I also had times when the card would stop functioning at all, or it would seemingly disable and re-enable. This wasn't an issue for me since I only use SD cards for emulation, and as I already said, I wasn't planning to use this device for emulation outside of Super Mario RPG. There was a point where I was keeping this thing fully up to date, but I read that they did an update to try and address this issue by raising the lower floor of the fan controller, and that was a non-starter for me. I have not updated the BIOS or the Armory Crate software since that happened, and I'm in no rush to do any updates unless there is a big enough improvement to warrant going through the hassle. The system itself has been super stable for me. It has never crashed or locked up in the last month, and I also haven't had any issues with the left menu. The only thing that I have dealt with is the device occasionally doing some strange stuff while it's asleep. There were a few times when the device would wake up from sleep at night and the device would boot up with the joystick LEDs at 100% brightness. Since this thing lives by my bedside, this was a huge issue. In total, this has happened to me 3 times, and it usually happens when I'm too tired to try and investigate. From what I saw, there shouldn't be any wake locks or tasks enabled that would do this, including Windows Updater. I did find you can disable 2 options in the Armory Crate settings, and that at least saves me from waking up to the blinding RGB lights when I'm sleeping if the device decides that it wants to wake up. I haven't found any way to disable the annoying white activity light that strobes when the device is sleeping, so I just end up covering it with my AR glasses while I sleep. I don't know who on the product team thought that that was a good idea. The only other issue that I've dealt with is around the analog sticks. The ring around the analog stick has a rough texture applied to the plastic, and that has slowly started to eat away at my left stick after doing a ton of snowy attacks. This isn't a problem that I have on any of my other handhelds because they all use a smooth material for this contact point. The sticks can still wear out, but it'll take a lot more effort and time to do it. One thing that I have wanted to fix on my Ally for a long time is the small SSD that it has. Now that I don't use the SD card slot at all, I've been really feeling how limited this thing is with how much power that it has. To be fair, it has the same amount of storage as the highest end deck, but it also has 24 gigs dedicated to a restore partition, and it has a full Windows installation to deal with. The OS partition says 451 gigabytes, but I believe this had just a bit over 400 gigabytes of free space after a fresh boot, which is way too small. My 512 gigabyte decks had a lot more storage than this out of the box. Ally has a lot more potential, and there are a lot of bigger games that I now find myself wanting to play on it, so it's time to upgrade that small SSD to a bigger one. For this, I'm going to use this 2TB AddLink card. It's rated for 5,000 megabytes per second read and 3,200 megabytes per second write. If those speeds are accurate, this should be a decent upgrade over my current card for read and write. I'm sitting at around 4,300 megabytes per second read and around 1,800 megabytes per second write at this point. I haven't done it yet, but this entire process is supposed to be painless. I'm going to power off my unit and remove the screws on the back. Then we just need to disconnect the battery and take out our old SSD. After that, we can put in the new 2TB card and we can reconnect the battery and screw on the back shell. Then we just need to reboot the device into the BIOS by powering the device on. This BIOS has a handy option called ASUS Cloud Recovery, and that should handle all of the annoying stuff for us. We just need to connect to the internet, and then the system will start to download the factory image with the operating system to our new SSD. This process does take a lot of time, but I like this a lot more than having to flash an image over to some USB drive. Alright, well I spoke too soon about that. After going through that entire process, I ended up with a Windows 11 China Home Edition, which is literally the worst version of Windows possible because you cannot change the display language without buying a Pro CD key. I thought this could be fixed by routing the Cloud Recovery install through a VPN, but I ended up with the same version 2 more times, so that must mean that my motherboard on this Ally is essentially region locked to this Windows license. My original Ally unit was an international version, but the second one came from ROG in China, and it was never an issue for me before today because I swapped over my SSD before giving back my original unit. I emailed ROG to ask them if they can change the Windows license that is tied to my motherboard, but I have no idea if they can or would do that. To get around this, I ended up creating an image of my 512GB SSD, and I used that to flash it onto my 2TB SSD. If you go this route, you'll have to do some finagling to resize the C partition, but everything worked, and I now have the benefit of not needing to do a single thing to set this up. Everything works just as it did before. Just make sure to disable BitLocker before you clone your drive if you want to do this. I did all of this with an external 2230 adapter from SharGeek that I made a video about recently. Now that I've fixed the biggest issue that I had with my Ally, I think we can finish up with why I think this device is so good after using it for over 2 months. The biggest reason why I use Ally over other handhelds that I have outside of my specific use for using this at night is because the cooling is so good. Ally is one of the only devices outside of the deck that has the ability to be very quiet for a lot of what it can do. You start to get diminishing returns with 7840U above 25 watt TDP, and the good thing is that Ally is really quiet from 7 to 25 watt TDP. It's way better than other devices that I have as you get closer to 25 watts. The device doesn't make that much noise, and the areas that you touch never feel that warm. The second reason why I like this device so much is the 120Hz FreeSync panel. I did not know how badly I wanted something like this in a PC handheld until I have to go back and use devices that don't have this. It is amazing, and a lot of games can run up to 120 FPS on this hardware without needing to max out the TDP. These are games that I would usually play on the deck at 60 FPS and be fine with. Anytime I find an older game that I haven't beaten that can render above 60 FPS, it gets added to my Ally playlist. Because I've used this thing so much, I have grown to love how fast it recharges. As you can probably guess by now, the charging speed is so much better than other hardware that I have. In some instances, it can even charge 2 to 3 times faster than comparable devices, and that is nuts. That's also a great thing because this battery isn't that big. If I go to bed early and I want to game for a longer time, I'll usually hook this up to a 144 watt-hour portable battery, and if I travel, I'll either take that battery or this smaller 72 watt-hour one, and I'm usually good to go. But I do wish that Ally had a bigger internal battery because 40 watt-hours is too small for what this can do. This has not played a big role in my enjoyment of the device over the last 2.5 months, but the speakers on this are great. And if you use this thing normally without any headphones or any other attachments that can deliver sound, you're gonna have a better experience than 90% of what's out there right now. A lot of companies treat audio as an afterthought, so when you get a product that does it well, it blows you away. This has not played a big role in why I personally like this device, since these were sent to me or I picked them up at an airport. But there's something to be said about being able to go into a Best Buy if you live in a region where they are sold at that store and just try it out to see if you like it. You don't have that kind of freedom when it comes to other stuff that this competes with, and this is beneficial both in the ability to easily return it if you don't like it, or get easy support or a replacement if something goes wrong without having to ship it back halfway across the world. So to wrap this up, I do have devices that do some things objectively better than Ally, but I don't have one that does everything better than Ally, and that's largely why it gets so much of my free time. It is possible to make a better device than this, but ROG is the closest to making that happen. If they decide to keep going with this platform and sell a rebranded 8840U next year and make even the smallest improvements to some of the glaring issues that this has, they will have the best product in the market that you can buy for the money. Hopefully, they keep going. If you enjoyed this video, take a look at a video that I did on the AYN Loki. That's a smaller device with awesome ergonomics. Happy gaming, everyone. Taki out.